For the young immigrant, these books were not just stories, but a map to the future.
What is your response to the critics, sir? Will you commit to the environmental targets? A statement on the recent events in India.
In 2006, Shashi Tharoor was 50 years old and serving as the UN Under-Secretary General for Communications. He was universally recognized as a brilliant diplomat, and he was on the verge of claiming the highest international office on Earth. Running for Secretary General, Tharoor secured a definitive second-place finish across 4 separate Security Council straw polls. But in the final round, the United States cast a veto against him. American officials later revealed their instruction was explicit. They wanted to block a candidate who might lead with the same independent streak as his mentor, Kofi Annan. Tharoor could have accepted a quiet UN retirement. Instead, he withdrew his candidacy, left the organization entirely, and entered the hyper-competitive arena of Indian domestic elections. To understand India's modern geopolitical strategy, we have to look at how Tharoor deployed decades of high-stakes crisis management within the specific constraints of domestic policy and global narrative warfare. Long before he was debating policy in Parliament, Tharoor spent his foundational years navigating catastrophic political fractures where lives were directly on the line. In the early 1980s, he headed the UN High Commissioner for Refugees office in Singapore. He led international rescue operations at sea, successfully processing and resettling thousands of Vietnamese refugees fleeing by boat. A decade later, he led the team responsible for United Nations peacekeeping operations during the brutal Yugoslav civil wars, spending immense amounts of time on the ground in active conflict zones. Managing these complex, localized wars taught him that strict theoretical neutrality often stalls out when real-world factions refuse to negotiate. This continuous exposure to international tragedy transformed him into a pragmatic executive, someone who understood the absolute necessity of decisive action over endless debate. In 2009, Tharoor brought that pragmatism home. He won the Lok Sabha seat for Thiruvananthapuram, officially trading his neutral diplomatic passport for the partisan realities of the Indian National Congress. As Minister of State for External Affairs, he pioneered the use of social media in government communication, becoming India's most followed politician on Twitter and breaking down traditional, opaque diplomatic barriers. When he later took charge of human resource development, he pushed to reform adult literacy and distance learning, arguing that a highly educated workforce is a strict requirement for long-term national security. Today, he wields legislative influence as the chairman of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on External Affairs. Following the 2025 Pahalgam terror attack, Tharoor, despite sitting in the opposition, led an official Indian government delegation to the US and Panama to defend India's retaliatory strikes. During the delegation's visit to the 9/11 Memorial in New York, he linked the United States and India as shared victims of terror, explicitly demanding global solidarity and accountability for state sponsors of violence. He demonstrated that in a moment of geopolitical crisis, national security demands a unified front that overrides internal political rivalries. Outside the parliamentary chamber, Tharoor operates an entirely different lever of influence. He is a prolific, often provocative author. Through books like Inglorious Empire, he mounts a rigorous defense against historical amnesia, detailing the economic devastation of the British Raj and demanding colonial reparations. He even proposed converting Kolkata's Grand Victoria Memorial into a museum explicitly documenting the looting, massacres, and famines caused by British rule. This control of narrative extends to his definition of India's soft power. He rejects the American melting pot metaphor in favor of the Indian thali, a platter where distinct, separate cultures sit side by side, retaining their unique flavors. Those individual dishes do not erase each other. They complement one another to create a satisfying whole, perfectly illustrating India's pluralistic democratic brand. Tharoor recognizes that writing a nation's history and defining its cultural identity is as effective for projecting global power as drafting its laws. The crisis manager, statesman, and provocateur represent 3 distinct levers of power, working toward a singular objective: positioning India as a non-hegemonic global power. 21st century influence extends beyond military spending and raw economic output. Authority belongs to countries capable of navigating sudden international emergencies, executing robust domestic strategies, and fiercely defending their own historical narrative on the world stage. By bridging the operational realities of global diplomacy with the partisan demands of domestic politics, Tharoor provides a case study in how a nation can project its interests across the 21st century landscape.